says imported natural gas from Russia. The senator has denounced United States and other U.S. energy infrastructure projects. Russia says Russia uses its supply of natural gas as a geopolitical weapon by the capital business.
DMV News begins what sort of components of the repair products rusted SUVs is about an automotive strike more than 6 days ago. The strike is cut down upon several in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the southeast region normally built its replacement. For other stories, it's now going back.
The following is an American Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of American Matters Media.
Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host, Leland Faegre. And you know, I sure wish there was something to talk about today. I can't think of anything at all that's going on.
I didn't hear about anything.
As usual, when you're dealing with our current reality here in the U.S. of A., we have another attack on the president, and
it's an assault.
An assault, yeah. Based on evidence that wasn't even in their possession when they first declared this. This is, again, like the phony war that England declared war on Germany and didn't do anything for a year.
Had to be reminded of.
Yeah, this is like that because there was no vote to create this commission or whatever they're calling it, or inquiry.
There has to be to have a formal inquiry. There has to be a resolution.
Have to be a resolution. It has to be referred to a specific committee, usually judiciary or whatever. And then from there, that committee would hash out the evidence and then bring the resolution to the floor.
So it's the appearance that matters here.
Yes, it's just a relabeling.
Yeah, it's choreographed, and of course, maybe the American people will start paying attention because heretofore they've not.
Right.
For the most part, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's, of course, the fault of generations of public schooling. You know, I was thinking about this, I guess it was yesterday. You know, one of my criticisms of public school generally was that the political science, or civics, as I think they described it when I was in the high school, epoch of my life, they described or went to great lengths every single year to reference the separation of powers. And that was the most boring part. That's what I thought turned kids off, was that they never moved on from the separation of powers. And then I saw a poll recently that the population, the American citizens generally, don't understand the separation of powers.
No. That
was the one thing that they pounded into your head year in, year out that put people off. They didn't even get that part.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. No, because actually that's
no extra charge.
No, that's one of the things that I am proud of doing in my life. When I ran as the Libertarian Party candidate against Assemblywoman Jan Evans in Sparks, and a couple of us did some research.
What year was that, by the way?
It was right 94, I think, right, or 96 when the Republicans were taking over the House under Newt Gingrich.
Okay, yeah,
and
that would have been Gingrich, yeah.
Yeah, the Nevada election was split exactly 50-50. 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans in the Assembly. Mm-hmm. And we saw that she was employed at UNR Medical School and as a fundraiser. And now, all of a sudden now she's also running for the Assembly. She's in the executive branch and and she already was. She's trying to be reelected to the legislative branch.
But it was part-time legislature.
That doesn't matter. It's still the case. The Attorney General's opinions in Nevada were very clear that you can't do that in the state of Nevada. That's our interpretation of our separation of powers clause. Any person, it doesn't say any officer. If it was officer, that would be different maybe. But any person in the executive branch could not serve in the legislature. And I brought up a contest of election that kept her out of the...
That would be a parliamentary phenomenon.
Yeah.
Not like our system is.
What?
the way it exists.
If they could be, yeah. Because Boris Johnson, who we're going to be talking about later, is
also a member
of the Parliament, but he's also in the executive branch as the Prime Minister. Yeah, you can't have that in America.
So how did that happen? How did that legislatively come about? The language of the, or how did the
it's
phenomenon?
in the Constitution.
Right.
Even in Nevada?
Yeah.
But it's in the Nevada Constitution, and it says any person cannot serve in two branches at once. And so when we looked up the case law and specifically the Nevada Attorney General's opinions, person was any employee. It didn't matter what she did. If they were an employee in one branch, they couldn't be in the legislature.
Right.
So by filing a contest of election, I threw the monkey wrench into the gear. She wasn't allowed. She wasn't allowed to participate in the drawing up of the legislative agenda because she was not totally elected yet. And that, like I said, it was split right down the middle, 50-50, and that year. So, but I didn't win, and I also tried to take it to Nevada court, and Connie Schottenheimer was the judge at the time, and Jan Evans was a big feminist, so I got shut out of that. But my materials that I used, I sent to Steve Miller over at the Nevada Policy Research Institute.
The songwriter, Steve Miller?
No, he was at that time the president of NPRI, Nevada Policy Research Institute, and they.
I heard abracadabra this morning.
So they liked my materials, and they have filed a couple of separation of powers lawsuits. So.
Well, that was a heads up. I mean, that was excellent on your part to do that. Nobody else was paying attention. Obviously.
No.
Yeah, nice job.
So we got it in the news. We got people talking about it, and they did. It was actually Governor when he was Attorney General, the last governor, the Latino. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Sandoval.
Oh yeah.
He issued an opinion agreeing with my position finally after this was over. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So
I wonder if he'd come on the show.
I don't know. We're always willing to have people come on the show. Yeah,
he
sure.
might be an accredited lobbyist.
Yes, you are welcome. We're here live every Wednesday, and in the Reno Town Mall. Yeah,
in the shadow of Atlantis.
Yes, and there's a couple of nice easy chairs to sit in if you want to watch the show, and you're welcome to contribute. We welcome people to call in and contribute.
But you can watch on our Facebook.
Yes, we're also simulcasting now on Talking Truth to Power in the Facebook channel. Mm-hmm. So you can catch us all there. And
we got a lot more to talk about.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even scratch the surface because we digressed it here a little bit. But
yeah. The reason I went in that direction before we go to a break here is that it could explain why so few Americans are actually paying attention to what is actually happening.
Right.
And I think that could be changing now.
Yes.
It may have gotten someone's attention anyway.
Okay.
So stay with us.
Howdy, Shannon Lawson here. When my family wants real barbecue, it's chili, rib tips, and sweet potato fries. It's the Butcher's Kitchen Barbecue, 7689.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host, Leland Faegre, hashing over the implications for Western society and the world regarding the events of the day. Okay, I know.
Eastern Europe, anyway.
Yeah, we're overreaching. But anyway, so we now have a case where the Ukraine, that poor benighted country, is being brought into the limelight again, and it's still a tug of war as to which way will Ukraine go. Will it go to Europe? Will it go to Russia? And this is all a result of our interference in their duly elected government in 2014 on the Maidan in Kiev, where it is understood, although admittedly not proven, but generally understood that mercenaries were used, hired by somebody to fire into the crowd and cause the Yanukovsky or the
Russian-leaning
the Russian-leaning president to decide whether to fight back or to flee, and he decided to flee, and that was the coup that put the Ukrainian nationalists in power,
and the United States directly involved.
Yes, involved in that
Ukrainian's future.
Yeah, and that was the second time we're involved. We also did a color revolution in 2004. That a lot of people are less familiar with, in which we
shocking.
Yes, we asked to put a pro-Western president in power there, and he immediately
like we did in Iran and elsewhere.
Yes, and and it's caused all kinds of corruption. If President Zelensky. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, and I know I can actually read some Cyrillic, but sometimes these names throw me unless I'm looking at them. But he ran on an anti-corruption platform, and the president is...
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And we have a legitimate concern in finding out how this whole Russiagate originated, and it does appear to have originated largely in the Ukraine.
Because you see, for a century now, the globalists have had their way. Mm-hmm. No interference, no trouble, nobody standing up to them. Along comes Donald John Trump.
I know.
That's what changed everything.
Yeah.
And they can't handle it.
No, they really can't.
This guy has got to go. And the American people don't fully understand just how comprehensive the globalist left has been interfering in our destiny, American destiny, as it relates to Trump's vision for the future. A non-globalist perspective for the future.
Like he talked about at the UN.
Correct. And can you imagine? This has never happened before. An American president stands at that lectern and effectively punishes those who have to sit there and listen to him, because they're all globalists.
Right.
They wouldn't be sitting there if they weren't globalists, And yet he takes this very, very personally. He despises this idea of America as a satrapy of a new world order, and he forces them to listen to the nationalist perspective of how the United States of America should be run. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yes, and I agree with you. I did find sometimes, though, his vision exceeds the purely nationalist vision, and it's still in the imperialist camp.
In the context of foreign policy.
Yeah. Exactly. But so the ambassador from Venezuela was reading a cookbook or something while he was speaking?
No, it was a book on Simón Bolívar.
Oh, okay. Oh, then that's the Bolivarian movement.
Yeah.
Oh, now we see,
So the symbolism was perfect
symbolism
for them.
and propaganda. Yes, sir. And the of course, then there was the meeting that, I don't know if it's going to happen today, but the meeting, I doubt it, between Rouhani and the president. And but yet we still got to see
You've heard of a meeting between?
No, there was talk.
Oh, there's been talk. Yeah,
there's just been talk.
I think the only meeting is between Chris Wallace of Fox News and Rouhani. So I would be shocked if that happens, but it could. I mean, I'd like to think so.
Is he Mike Wallace's son? Listen, I pulled up Biden in my notes before the show, and I called him Mike Wallace.
Like you don't know that. Yeah.
But at any rate,
that's you playing the dumb guy.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But the nepotism and the family ties go very deep, and what we're seeing with the Biden clan, and whether they have enriched themselves. We all know that Joe Biden was poor when he went into as vice president, relatively speaking.
He likes to talk about it.
Yeah. And he also likes to talk about his heroics. He's got a hero complex. You never noticed that? He's always the center of doing things. He's the one that saved the swimming pool from corn pop.
Right, exactly.
Bad dude with his crew of bad dudes.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, but at any rate, Hero Joe or Gunslinger Joe. I thought he was Lunch Pail Joe.
Yeah, he's got a lot of adjective descriptions.
He has gotten quite wealthy since he stopped being President Barack's go-to boy. His house, Whitey.
As has his family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but not as much as Barack and Michelle have gotten rich,
No.
But he has gotten.
He was only vice president.
Yes, but he has gotten his fair share, as they say, of.
I guess I won't worry about him. Do you know there's a Whitey Boulder connection to that Ukrainian
I
story?
heard about that.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to flesh that one out.
There's a lot to flush out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's bring it on.
Yes,
we want to see that.
We want to see some real inquiries going here. We want to see some real muckraking by our representatives in Congress, like Adam Schiff.
And that's what we're really seeing, I think, in its early stages, is an investigation of the intelligence establishment, who, after all, is the source of the Russiagate mythology. So it needs to be investigated. It is being investigated. We've got the Durham and DOJ reports coming. Boy, I think that this so-called whistleblowing in the wind story is the result of the timing of the Inspector General's report. It has to be fairly imminent, and they know this. So this is their protection. This is their shield against all of these things that are coming up in the future. I think the wind is at his back, despite this, this step towards impeachment, which wasn't really a change at all. It was just the appearance of change. I don't see any really significant hurdles for Trump going forward into the campaign season.
No, I mean, I don't either. I think that if the left progressives nominate Elizabeth Warren, when is the last time a liberal senator from New Hampshire or Massachusetts got elected? I mean, we have not seen that yet, and I don't see any reason why.
Well, that's why Biden says it's not important.
And Lunch Pail Joe if he's revealed to be, this grifter, just another grifter politician. Oh, something else that we found out, and I don't know whether our audience is aware, but Joe Biden, along with who was then vice president, along with Secretary of State John Kerry, after the Snowden, revelations, and Snowden fled. He was looking for some place to go to give him amnesty and sanctuary, actually. And it was Biden that was on the phones telling all these countries that there would be serious consequences if they let Snowden in.
Right.
Yeah. Now talk about a quid pro quo.
I mean, let's face it. Biden was in the center of the assignment of this intelligence operation to dethrone Trump. He was at the very center. He got every piece of information that Obama got, and Yates and Rice and the rest of them, and on down to Comey and McCabe. I mean, everybody knew what everybody else had.
Right.
There was no secrets here, and they had to play it by the book, as Obama said in his last day or two in office. So what we're witnessing here is an effort to perhaps shield Biden from the consequences of the DOJ investigation. It could be a bifurcated, double-edged sword here. They'd like to get rid of Trump, but certainly
they want to protect Joe.
It could be exactly what they've may have had planned for many, many months. I mean, this story went back to the Ice Age, for Christ's sake. We've been talking about this for a year. I mean, they've had this. We've known about his statement at the Council on Foreign Relations with Richard Haas to his left, which you don't see really in the clip. But this director or this president of the CFR is sitting right next to Biden when he makes this statement. So it had the credulity and legitimacy of the fact that it was in the House of CFR when he made it. And interestingly enough, Conway, the president's what's her name? His press secretary.
I'm not sure. You mean
Conway?
Yeah. All right. We both had a Biden moment just now.
Yeah.
Folks. Biden moment.
But anyway, she referenced the CFR.
Yes.
In her statements. So everybody's referencing the CFR. I don't think that's without significance either.
Yes, because you don't. Those people act behind the scenes. You don't see them.
Yeah, when I first learned of the CFR, I was 19 years of age. Nobody talked about it at that time.
Right.
And then I was a campaign manager for Gary Richard Arnold in Santa Cruz, and we made it a point in exchange with Ronald Reagan, and Reagan told him to shut up. Don't go away, folks.
Join the Funtime Theater this fall as we make the history of the Comstock come alive.
You're invited to join Business Connections with Anita every Wednesday from 10 to 11 a.m. here on 1180 a.m. KCKQ America Matters.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. And yes, you should call that number or the number I have in front of me, 844-790-8255, and ask for...
Talk.
Yeah, talk. That's talk. And ask, and you can talk to us, or you can also ask about becoming a sponsor of our show. And we would certainly like some help here in getting this word out to you and getting more people to participate in a discussion about what's really going on in this country.
And no one else is doing it like we do here, ladies and gentlemen. So.
Nobody. So you won't hear this on Fox, not half of it, or on any of the other stations. And so that's why we're here, folks. We're trying to get the truth out to you. And we saw that our President Donald Trump met with several foreign leaders at the UN, and one of them was Boris Johnson, who was just on the stiff end of a rebuke from the British Supreme Court. Have you ever?
Who knew there was a Supreme Court in Britain?
Yes, that is the number one question.
Yeah.
Very few people know that there even is a Supreme Court in England.
And when did that form? When did that come about?
I read it was 2009 that Parliament created the Supreme Court. So there is no written constitution in England. So
and who was Prime Minister at the time?
It doesn't fall under the separation of powers.
No, it does not. What a concept, huh?
Yeah. I don't know who was in 2009. Was that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Who was that? Blair or Cameron?
Yeah, I'm thinking it might have been. It might have been too early for Cameron, but yeah, Blair. It must have been Blair.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a Blairite court, but they apparently have 11 judges, and they just this case. Everybody was England was saying, no, this is their. They stepped forward. This is a landmark case. That what they're talking about is that this new Supreme Court has just issued a ruling that says that they can overrule the executive branch, and all in the name of democracy, not in the name of a constitution, a written constitution. And Boris Johnson is going to respect it. So this is the English Supreme Court just had their Marbury v. Madison when they established the right of judicial review. And that is why it's such a landmark case. And we had ours at the beginning of the 19th century. They are having theirs now in 2019. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very.
Yes.
So I'm just seeing it here. It also covers the entire kingdom, and not just the island itself. So I don't see a date for its inception. But it looks. Yeah, you're right. It looks like it was October 1 of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's when and that was an act of Parliament, right? Because
it would have to.
Yeah, it couldn't have been. The Queen isn't going to take herself to issue a proclamation.
No, in fact, she was caught in the middle of this thing because Johnson's decision for prorogation made assured or required that the Queen weigh in on it.
Yes.
And then, of course, she approved it. And prorogation happens at every year anyway because they go on their party conferences. So what was unique this time is he extended it out 2 weeks, and it turns into this major thing.
And I'm
telling you, British politics is very fun. Yeah. It really is interesting.
And then I think the ruling was that he fooled the Queen, so the Queen had no.
Well, that's how it's played.
Yeah,
he wasn't fooling anybody,
right?
But that's how they'll play.
So she was totally innocent. She was just this nice, innocent Queenie.
Seems fine to me.
Yep. I'll do what you say, Boris. And then, so
lo and behold, they want to upset this Brexit scheme and any part of this, and so they've stopped at nothing to put something in his way.
And all in the name of democracy.
Right. That's how they.
The people voted for Brexit.
They voted for it.
And yet they're going to overturn Brexit in the name of democracy.
And Juncker says that it will happen. Did you see that story?
No.
Yeah. So apparently they've all come to accept that some form of Brexit is going to take place, but because if you hear it from him, then it must be going to happen. Because I don't think he'd be spinning it if he didn't think it was going to come about.
Right. Now, will this Supreme Court in England defend free speech? I kind of doubt it. That horse has left the barn in England quite a while ago.
There's no written constitution.
Yeah, and it
is what they say it is.
Yeah, exactly. And Jeremy Corbyn of the Labour Party has been accused of being anti-Semitic, and he just responded in typical political fashion by banning a mural that was put up at their convention that showed Corbyn and then an airplane labeled Israel Lobby with Benjamin Netanyahu, the pilot, zooming down on him and dropping bombs that were labeled anti-Semitism on the Labour Party. And Corbyn, and he had it removed.
Yeah.
He said it was anti-Semitic.
Right. Yeah, he's all over the map, that guy.
Yeah.
And since you mentioned Netanyahu, the Israeli president has given Netanyahu's a mandate to form a government, as the show went on the air today. So, and the presidential approval rating is at 53%. I think that's another reason that they decided to use this whistle blowing in the wind nonsense, is because they realize it's now or never for them. If his approval rating gets 55 or it's anywhere near 60, it's over for the Democrats.
Yeah,
and I hate to call them Democrats because they're not; they're just communists by disguise. But they believe that it's either now or never. I think that's why they acted when they did.
So they have to try and stop the orange pompadour now, or forget about it.
Yeah, and then enter Mitt Romney.
Oh, Mitt, you can always count on Mitt to have a Rhino quote.
Who needs a Democrat when you got him?
Yeah, exactly. He said he was deeply troubled. It was very troubling to read the transcript of Donald Trump's conversation.
Yeah, deeply troubled. Does our terrestrial signal go into Utah, by the way? I know it gets into northern Nevada. It's close to the Utah line.
He doesn't think so, Chris.
I don't think it does.
No?
Okay.
Because that would be nice if, we could talk to the people of Utah about that guy and maybe have an effect on the next election, if not sooner.
Yeah, I think like in all cases, isn't his base Salt Lake City? I mean,
I would assume.
Yeah, because the urban areas are always more liberal than the rural areas.
Any city is. Yeah. Salt Lake City centric is what the state is, I assume.
Yeah. But I'm that's what happens when you're a favorite son. You get elected, even though your policies are. People don't care. Apparently, they like the name. He's good looking. He's Mormon, and
I wonder how many Mormons are in our assembly here.
I haven't counted. I hate to do head counts like that, but
it'd be worth knowing, though.
Yeah, it is worth knowing. It's also worth knowing how many people of another ethnicity are in Congress, but we're not going to go there.
All right. Yeah, I'd kind of like to know all that stuff, actually.
We have a right to know. We're U.S. citizens.
We do, and these things do matter. They implicate and help us to come to terms with some of the issues.
Now, Adam Schiff, the head of the House Judiciary Foreign Intelligence Committee, he was, of course, in front of the cameras today talking about the whistleblower. And people don't know this, but he is a distant relative, but a great-great-grandson or something of Jakob Schiff, who was the president of Kuhn Loeb and Company.
Oh, he was a major conspirator.
Yes, he's the one that bragged that he paid for Lenin's secret SEAL train into Russia.
I had no idea of the relationship.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that explains a lot.
Well, it could. I mean, you can't do guilt by association, really, but
You
it
can't?
does. Well, all right. People do it all the time. I don't know if it explains anything, but it is very interesting that somebody because I think it sends up a caution sign if we didn't already have one.
Yeah, if for no other reason.
Yes.
It leads to some understanding and discourse on his current behavior, because it is peculiar.
Well, and also that he has close ties to right-wing Ukrainian groups. He speaks before them. They give him money and things like that.
There you go,
he has a
Ukraine again.
Yeah, he's got a Ukrainian connection.
Yeah.
Or diaspora Ukrainian connection. I don't know if he's personally involved in the internal workings of the Ukraine, but people also don't know that how powerful the Ukrainians are, for example, in Canada. And, we never talked about Justin Trudeau in his blackface episode.
No, I considered it to be almost a non-story in a way.
Except, he's really not a racist. He's just into costumes.
I think it was brownface. It wasn't blackface. It was
brown
brownface.
Or black. He's just into costumes. He's a cosplay guy.
Yeah, well,
he's got a fetish about dressing up.
He has that fake eyebrow.
Yeah.
That,
remember, he went to India and he dressed up in an Indian sarong.
Whole family did.
Yeah, and put his hands together in prayer and all that.
Mm-hmm. He likes to look
just
apart.
Likes to dress up.
He really does.
Yeah, I wonder if he does it, privately.
He's fashion conscious.
I think it's more than fashion conscious.
No, that's speculative.
It is speculative.
Well, we have to do these kinds of things in order to get into the weeds and push envelopes around here. So, with less than 17 seconds remaining in this segment, where should we go in the next one? What are your thoughts?
Well, I want to get in a little bit about that poor girl. What was her name? Greta?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Oh, man.
That is stick around, folks.
Hi, I'm Leslie Moon.
And I'm Shonda Golden.
Join us every Wednesday at 3 p.m. for American Women, where we'll talk about issues affecting all of us with select guests.
Faith, family, politics, economics, fitness, music, culture, and anything else we want to talk about. Because
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host here is Leland Faegre, and we're talking about what has been going on, and what has been going on is this terrible stare from a 16-year-old woman to the people at the UN. Her name was Greta Thunberg. Mm-hmm. And she apparently sailed across the Atlantic, a commendable feat, brave young lady. And she spoke to the UN, and her look was so intense. I mean, it was very, very scary from
vicious.
A psychological point of view, yes.
I think the word is vicious.
Yes. And she accused the older generation, everybody that was there, of basically of hypocrisy, which is good because they that's something that they all fly their private jets to go to these conferences, but this whole idea that they do not understand that the world is coming to an end and it's all their fault. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are making the world, dooming us to, burning up in the new left wing's environmental version of hellfire and brimstone. And that's why I wanted to talk a little bit here about the not only the psychological effect of it. Did you see the GIF when she comes around the corner and Donald Trump is walking in front of her and she comes around the corner and sees that Trump's in front of her and she gives him that death stare again?
I didn't see it. No.
Yeah, that's a GIF that's been trending on Twitter and so on.
I assume that, you know what? Yeah, I did hear about it. But I think it's interesting that she focuses on him rather than China.
Oh, yeah.
There's your polluter. Not that there's any connection to climate change, but there's your polluter. If you want to go after a polluter, Jesus, is there a more worthy state than China? I mean,
right. And there have been studies shown that developing countries pollute more until they reach a certain level of development, and then the people in the country, once they have some wealth, are able to focus more on not just surviving, but on a clean environment. And so these countries reach a certain level, I forget the technical name in the literature, of economic development, and then the pollution is going up, and then after that the pollution starts going down as they develop. Yeah. So, but still, the de facto leading polluter is China, by far. And
Asia generally.
Yeah, so all this banning of straws and all this stuff is not going to have any real effect, but it's going to take away from the lives of quality of life of some Americans.
Well, and Trump responded at the United Nations by making only a very short presence to the climate change quarters or the area with and then he went on to the religious freedom discussions, which I think is another commendable.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because that really is more important. There's really no justification for all of this hyperbolic rhetoric about climate change. It's ridiculous.
And Christians are the most persecuted religious people in the world, I think. I think most studies will show that. But what I wanted to talk about is that people don't realize that in Western culture and in American history, this end of days mentality has been very prominent. And the St. John wrote the book of the Apocalypse, and this apocalyptic book that says that the world is going to come to an end, that this Christ is going to come down and reign in his physical body, and all of this is very, very influential in American history.
It is, and I've always been fascinated by it, actually. Mm-hmm. The idea that the end of times is actually something that people focus on, but it has to do with revealed religion. It has to do with the so-called written word, and for those who believe that God speaks to man or publishes books for our behalf, then I guess it has legitimacy. I'm not one of those people.
Right. But theologians, when they look at the book of the Apocalypse written by St. John, the Apostle, they say there are three ways to interpret it. One, it's the end of the world is coming in the future. And number two is one that most people don't really consider because the mainstream churches don't really hold this, but the end of the world has already come. And number three is that it's all symbolism. Like you said, it just refers to things that you don't really have to pay attention to, but they're powerful emotional art and literary value and all that. But
eschatology.
Eschatology. That's the science or the theological inquiry into the end of the world, basically. And most countries, most religions, the other religions of the world don't really have an eschatology. I think in Hindu, you can keep individual self-enlightenment through the karmic rebirth, but it's not about the end of the world. And
I've always considered that to be a more enlightened discipline when it comes to revealed religion. Yeah.
And then you have Buddhism, which is similar. Yeah. So it's only in the Abrahamic religions that dominate the West that we have this feeling of the end of the world.
Because they have the ability to control us with that.
Yes, they do.
Better get your act together or else. Now how many years do we have now?
I know. And 12 years. If we don't do something in 12 years. Now, of course...
Why bother?